It don't matter what your name is, share your story. We'll be waiting, yeah, for the haters, whoa.
All right. What's up, everybody?
Sorry, do it one more time. Start again.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to For The Hayters podcast. This is Becky, your host. We are also joined here by Laura, our co-host and writer.
Hello, everyone.
And then today's guest is AJ.
What's up?
If you want to just say hello to the nice people.
Hello, fellow haters.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm excited to kind of just jump right into things because there's so many layers to your story and like what comes from it that I think is super beneficial to have the conversation. So if you want to, I don't know how much leading up to when all this started is as important to you, but whatever you want to kind of just say about yourself, explain who you are.
Sure.
And kind of why you're here.
Yeah. Well, like I said, my name's AJ, and I grew up in a small town, literally right next to where Becky's from, called Harmony Township. It's real nice people. Everybody knew everybody. We all got along. Small friend circle in school, but I also like to play a lot of sports too, which was something that was kind of like my release growing up. Mm-hmm. And I was a triathlete. I played soccer, basketball, baseball. And I did that up in through high school, pretty much until like I played soccer up until about my senior year, and the other two I kind of like strayed away from just because one, school was a little bit more important, and one, I only liked soccer more than the other two. So, so it was a good time for me growing up as far as the childhood I had leading up into high school, but unfortunately for me, I was in a car accident, in which case I slammed into a telephone pole, which I passed coming here, by the way. It's still there
memories.
To this day,
Yeah, that's crazy.
It always reminds me to just kind of slow down and just, ease with caution.
Yeah.
Looking around. But, I was a rookie driver at the time, and I jerked from the deer with the steering wheel, and the car kind of 360'd into the telephone pole, and I really herniated a disc bad in my back, in which case, I kind of had to get surgery on. And then once I had surgery on it, I went to college. College was like real quick, I had fun. But I also studied hard and got my bachelor's degree in environmental biology, which I'm very proud of. But for the majority of the time I was sitting, which was unfortunate, which also caused me a lot of discomfort as well, because one, I was very studious, science, it's very, dedicated, and your social circle really shrinks as far as, that goes.
You're reading a lot too, and with that.
Oh yeah, all sorts of different like chemistry, biology, everything. So I'm sitting long periods of time. Classes are like 3 to 6 hours a piece. And, it was very uncomfortable up until, I was like, I need to get a job, in which case I can walk around and kind of like, not be in a sedentary position where I'm sitting for a long period of time. And, coming out of college, I needed healthcare as well. So, I was like, I need a job. So I quickly like grabbed 2 part-time jobs to start making money at H&R Block and Best Buy. And then ultimately got a full-time job the following year at Best Buy, in which case, my problem started to progress a little bit more, which was, unpredicted on my part because I thought it would be rather beneficial than negative, but it ended up kind of being a little bit of a negative.
What do you mean by that? Like in the case that you were having to stand for longer periods of time than you predicted, or sit for longer periods of time?
I thought that I would be more or less able to kind of like free roam, like help people out, like walk around when there wasn't people in the store, but it ended up being like, you stand there and help that customer there, and you stand there and greet customers there. And it's like, so I can't go around and learn a little bit about the stuff in the store that I'm selling, or because we
not even learn, just move.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Your body, right?
So like it was a very like, you stand there and you do this kind of job, and that's kind of what it became as far as how it developed from where Best Buy was when I came in about 2016 to where it ended up in 2018. So ultimately them closing the store and then us losing our jobs there. So.
Let's I want to take this back
Yeah.
for a second because I feel like we sped through that and
I was
we
trying to
missed
give
a lot.
like a
No, and
huge, like, this is me.
I appreciate that. Okay, let's go back to the accident.
Yeah.
You were how old? You were in high school.
It was my junior year in high school, and I believe I was about 16 or 17.
Okay.
Like, just got my license. I was probably 17. And then, like, I think it was probably 4 or 5 months after I got my license, which would have been, I got my license in June because that's when my birthday, and the accident was, like, I think around Thanksgiving time or
Okay.
like October. So it was like a few months after I got my license, and literally just, knee-jerk reaction, just cocked the wheel too quick, and it was
Right.
icy out.
Because
so-
you'd seen a deer.
Yeah, so
Right.
it spooked me, and I kind of
Sure.
just lost control on 519, which which was I was reluctant to have nobody coming opposite directions or anyone behind me because I literally lost control of the car and spun 3-4 times into a telephone pole with that momentum.
That could have been catastrophic.
Well, yeah, the police officer said I could have been pretty severely hurt if it would have hit my door rather than the front fender,
Okay.
because that's where it ended up colliding, was the front fender there, and I literally was just like thrown into my steering wheel and the center console and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you get into this accident, and I would imagine all sports stop, right? I mean, effective immediately.
That's kind of why, like I said, sports kind of just, shed it away because, I wanted to focus more on my academics, one, because of that, and two, I was like, I'm going to finish up soccer because I was so dedicated to for all those years. Though I didn't play as much my senior year, I was still part of it. I traveled with the team, I still felt like a member, did senior night and all that. But yeah, sports pretty much stopped after that. And, though I did try to remain healthy as far as like exercise and things like that, it started to become a lot harder as like the years progressed.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm at now, is where I'm trying to like implement a healthy me program for the situation that I'm in. Because it's very hard to do certain exercises when your center of who you are is like your spine is messed up.
Right.
So you got to do bending, you got to do lifting in order to do those kinds of things, and I can't do those. So I try to focus on other ways. Like I have a recumbent exercise bike now that I use. It's low riding, so that way I'm not putting any stress on my low back, and I can kind of just like pedal away.
Yeah, so to kind of talk a little bit more about the result from, you got a hernia disc are pretty common, and the level of severity vary. Especially it depends what level it is and what discs are affected. So you had gotten surgery. Is that the only time that... Did you get another surgery after?
No, but I've had over 20 injections
Okay.
into my lower lumbar spine, which...
Like cortisone injection? Like what type of...
It's a steroid, I'm not certain as far as what it was, I wasn't told that prior to that. I was just saying this may or may not help, and ultimately it didn't, so,
Yeah.
It didn't alleviate any pain?
No, if anything, it made things worse,
Oh.
which is what my general practitioner was telling me. He's like, those are kind of like hit or miss as far as like risks and, the ultimate results for the person getting them. Like, it does help some people, like, don't get me wrong, but there are risks involved because they are injecting a long needle into a groove of nerves that is being guided by imaging, because they literally take image after image with markers to try to get the spot. So there were things that were messed up after one or two of those injections. So like it started to get worse after that versus,
Yeah. And so in your life, when you graduated college, it was essential for you to get a job with benefits because you needed health insurance. Having an injury that could lead to the unknown. It can get better, it could get worse, you don't know. So that's in your head, which is crazy when we've talked about this before, like that being a deciding factor of what we do is so limited. It limits like what, our future, it limits our creativity. It limits, I feel like, a lot that we have the potential to do as humans because people settle for something because of
Right.
health insurance.
There's little
Right.
opportunities, so you grab at what's available at the time, you know, which is what I did, because that's what I was told to do, because that's what everybody that was older than us did when they were our age, you know. It's like, well, do you know somebody that's working there? Well, ask them for a job.
Yeah.
It's not that easy anymore, you know what I mean? You got to fill out the job application, you got to go through the interview process.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot more, you know, climbing to the top of that ladder than it was, you know, 30, 40 years ago,
Yeah.
where it was just like, you know, somebody and you were there, versus now where it's like, well, and also back then you would also go into the hospital, they take care of you. You know, you were sick, you go to the hospital, they take care of you until you're better. Nowadays it's like, you don't have health insurance?
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to cost you a lot. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, why are we not taking care of the people that need most taken care of?
Yeah.
Like, mostly, like, in the fact that, like, in my situation where I'm trying to, like, get that health care so that I can take care of this injury, but it's, like, you know, limited. So I'm trying to, like, make life out of lemons without
Yeah.
getting burned by them, you know what I mean?
Yeah. If you could talk a little bit more about the actual pain, right? That the way that and what the pain is and how it affects your life then, your life now. And maybe even I have another question after you
Sure.
after you answer that.
So, like, it's really, if you've ever thrown out your back, sciatica is more or less a term for the feeling that I have. So if you were to say sciatica, that's more or less the pain that wraps around from the lower back down into the buttocks, down the thigh, down the leg, and then over top of the foot. So it's kind of like, have you ever had your foot in an ice bath? And you know that pain that kind of like starts to circulate after leaving it in there for too long? That's what my foot kind of feels like at all times. All the way up into my leg.
Yeah.
And then my back is kind of like a little bit more of like a creaky, like, you know, stiffness where it's
Yeah.
causing all of that sensation down my leg. So it's very hard, and it's very debilitating because it's also causing me balance issues and weakness. Hence why when I'm standing for a long time or I'm walking for long distances, I bring a walking stick with me.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a tough pain to get over. And a lot of it had to do with acceptance when I first started getting into, like, you know, is this really happening to me? You know, you get into this, well, why is this happening to me? You know, you don't want to accept it. And that's a big part of, like, the pain. It's like you need to accept the fact that this is part of who your physical being is. And then you move forth from there. Like, don't let it affect you mentally. And it did affect me mentally for a while. And, you know, if you had a paper cut that didn't go away, I'm sure it would drive you insane, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is just something that I have to live with as a permanent paper cut, so to speak. And, you know, you grin and bear it. You try to distract yourself as best you can. You try to grab at new opportunities because, you know, reluctantly for me, I have a family that's taking care of me in this whole process, which I love them dearly for. I love them dearly altogether. But it's just like the fact that you need to change your life in a sense where it was like 10 years. I see people posting these, 2010, 2020. I'm just like, well, here's me as an athlete. Here's me with a stick.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just, it's a hard thing to, like I said, accept. But after you accept it, it makes the pain much easier to deal with. So 2018 into 2019, very rough for me. 2020 is a real new me because a lot of it had to do with reconstructing my mind frame and the way I was thinking, because I'm coming from a why me to a this is me. You
Right.
know, it's kind of like you have to get over the why me and get to the this is me to move forth from that. And that's what this necklace that I wear represents. It's the
What does it say?
it's the flower of life. It's for open-mindedness and trying to be a little bit more, you know, thoughtful of, like, you know, feelings that you're having and trying to think them out conscientiously and, you know, not react in a sense that would be negative. You
Yeah.
know, you take it for what it is and you move forth.
Move forward.
I have the tree of life on my ring. I think we're in the same forest.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Can you talk, and it might be hard for you, but and whatever you're comfortable with, but can you talk a little bit more about you know, that 2018 to 2019 period, you know, what was it mentally that like was the hardest? And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but, you know, how did the mental aspect affect your life? And, you know, what were like the lows that you had to go through that you had to come out of?
So, I mean, I come from a family that's very working class. Like, my dad was a maintenance worker for 30 years, retired doing it. I actually worked for him for many years. My mom, you know, preschool teacher, does taxes. My sister's a teacher. You know, my pop was a carpenter and in the Navy. So it's like very working class. Like, you got a job, you did your job, you retired, and that's kind of like what I grew up believing. And the fact that I had to step down from pursuing my, you know, betterment for my future as far as employment and stuff like that to kind of take care of what was going on in my life, it was a real game changer. And I had to restructure how I was going to go about my life, which was very, you know, I can't, I'm having a hard time finding words for it, but it's very debilitating. Like,
Sure.
It literally takes you off your feet and makes you into this person that you never thought you would see yourself being, you know, prior to the situation. But that's what, you know, pain and depression can do to you. It can really beat you down to the point where it's like, well, I don't even want to watch this next series on Netflix. I just want to go to sleep. You know, I just want to go to sleep because I'm in pain and I don't want to feel it anymore. You know, and that's not life. That's not a quality of life. And that's the life that I was living after I lost my job and stepped down from my job, you know, because of what I was living. You know, it was a very hard time as far as moving forth because I was in such a void. You know, I was like, what do I do with my life? You know, I'm trying to think of things to do and stuff like that, but ultimately the pain's there and it's just beating you down. Like, you try to get back up and it's like, it's still here, you know? So
How did it affect your social life?
I really isolated myself. Like, I kind of took myself away from Facebook. I stopped tweeting, you know, I stopped even posting pictures on Instagram, which I really love doing. You know, and it was really in 2020, you know, not 2020, but 2020 vision, literally I took myself away from all the people that could have helped me with the things that I was going through, because at the time I was really thinking, like, I don't want to burden them, you know? Like, it's like, my family's taking care of me already. Like, I don't want to tell them what I'm going through mentally.
Yeah.
You know? So it's very hard to talk to people because you don't want to put it off on them as like, well, this is going through my life. Help me. You know? And not everybody's willing to give you that help. And it's hard to put the trust into somebody to do that in the first place. And it nonetheless get, you know, shut down sometimes from the people that love you the most.
So was it equal parts like fear of burdening them and then fear of them rejecting your ask?
Pretty much.
You know?
Like, you know, it's every time I go to a family event, it's gotten better, but it was like, well, what are you doing with yourself? It was like, what do you mean, what am I doing with myself? You know what I'm going through.
Right.
Yeah.
But do you know what I'm going through? Because otherwise, would you be asking me that?
Yeah, and it's hard for people to understand something they don't see, right? So, like, when you see someone with visible disabilities, it's a lot easier to feel sympathy or empathy for someone. It's the same thing with someone that's going through something mental.
Right.
We have a hard time with empathizing or sympathizing with something that we can't physically see or understand. And I think that chronic pain is completely in line with that. So when someone's asking, what are you doing with your life? It's most likely because they can't understand, which is such a shame because, I mean, I didn't look up stats and I should have, but chronic pain is a huge issue that a lot of people deal with. And I would there's probably more people that deal with it silently than not as well because of, you know, the things that surround it and the...
Absolutely.
Right.
I was telling Becky right before we started that, the reason why I wanted to do this episode too was, I mean, and again, this doesn't take away from your specific story, but the umbrella of chronic pain is so encompassing of like my friend who has lupus, my friend who has, you know, early onset rheumatoid arthritis in her mid-20s, my mom who has fibromyalgia and they have like no idea what that even is, but
Right.
I'm watching these people in my life having these like silent companions. I think that's what chronic pain is, because when you look at them, they seem perfectly normal.
Yeah.
They seem perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. They can't get out of the chair.
Right.
And you don't know that unless you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how do you go about like introducing yourself to new people?
Well, before it was, you know, very easy as a salesman, because it's like, hey, like, I sell this stuff, but like, how are you today? You know, like, so you'd make friends like that, but I'd also
So you'd like just kind of almost not project. I guess it's the opposite. You'd deflect. Is that what you're saying? Like you would just sort of like not disclose certain things, or you would make it about them?
yeah, I would really more or less try to like surround the conversation around the other person, because I would
Right.
not want to deal with talking about my life. And a lot of times it came to the point where it was like I came to tears, because it's like we're starting to talk about my life, and I'm just like, I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's uncomfortable, at least at the time, because it was like a transfer period as I was adapting to something I was not yet used to. Now I'm at the point where I'm much more adapted to it and accepting of it.
You're talking about it more openly.
Right. And now even like I started going out to the bar again. You know, I started like, you know, saying like, hey, did you see that fight the other week with McGregor? He knocked the other guy out in 40 seconds. You know, just making small conversation. Not necessarily bringing back to the fact that I have discomfort and pain, but if it comes up, I'm not going to make it all about that. I'll be like, yeah, I have a little bit of a sciatica problem.
What changed for you exactly? And I asked that too because obviously we read your bio that you submitted, and you know at the very end of it you're like, today I'm unemployed, I'm, you know, but like what followed that sentence was, but I'm finding new ways to like channel my creativity, to do things while I'm sedentary. What made 2020 different? Like when did you wake up and say, I need to approach this from a different, you know?
I think that as I started to go back into social media and see some of the lives people were living, some of the things that were going on, like not everybody was necessarily in that cookie cutter lifestyle where it was like, we got a job, we got a family, we got a house, we got 2 dogs, we got a 2-car garage with a Mercedes and a van, you know? But there are some people out there that's like, I'm an artist, you know, I sell art and I make some money off of it, but I'm okay. You know, it's like, just because they don't have that job, so to speak, doesn't mean that they can't make a job out of some of the creativity that is inside you that you don't even really know about until you try to approach that. You know, like there was some things that I would have never seen myself doing. I would have never seen myself writing, and I love to write now. Like that's literally why I knocked out that bio that I gave you in like literally 20 minutes. I was just like, I'm just gonna. But you know, it's an escape for me now, because when unlike before the pain era, I literally now escape into my writing rather than into exercise or sports and stuff like that. So I had to find new ways to keep myself busy, not only, but like find new skills that I could grasp in order to make a job out of those skills, so to speak. You know,
It's really interesting that like in one of the rare moments that social media does good.
Yeah.
you it seems like you were inspired by other people online.
Well,
and other lives.
And it's not even that like I'm close to some of these people still.
Yeah.
You don't have to be.
But it's just like I was close to them in high school. I'm very happy for where they are now, and that happiness that I feel for them kind of instilled a little bit of motivation in myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like that.
Absolutely.
So like I see people get married, having kids, and I'm just like, heck yeah. You know, like I want a little piece of that pie. So I'm trying to like kind of like form a new way to kind of like make it to the top, so to speak. Because the top that I had envisioned in 2010 was a lot different than the top that I'm looking at now, because I
Sure.
stumbled down the hill a little bit, but now I'm looking back up, I'm like, hey. So, you know.
I like that.
You made an interesting point, and I just want to, real quick, just get you to expand on it. Do you find that you're happier for other people since you've accepted that you can have happiness in your own life?
Yes. Like, it's a little bit, like I said, it kind of instills a little bit of light in yourself. And like, you can really use that forever you want. Like, for me, it motivated me. But, like, that happiness you feel for somebody else can really, like, put good into the world. Like, you can't just, like, see that somebody's married and be like, you know,
Yeah.
like you don't want to be like a snub. You
Yeah.
you want to fucking be like, listen, listen,
You can curse, but you can't be violent.
listen. Like, you know, like, I'm happy for this person. Like, they're living a good life. I'm proud of them. I want to live a good life too.
And I think that, I mean, that type of energy is what brings us back that type of energy too. You know, the more you give that, I say this all the time. If you see something that, like, you like, even if it's on social media, if you see something someone posts that you like, say it, like, tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what we need more of. This is going to be a really weird transition, but, you know, the fact that, like, Instagram might be taking away likes, it's interesting for me to think about, because I like the idea that it forces people to comment and be more
Sure.
like, vocally active.
Mm-hmm.
If they see it and they want someone to know it, they comment, because that type of communication is a lot more personal and beneficial than just, you know, tapping on
It
something.
forces you to care less about the attention and more about the impact that you might be making with your statement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us, you know, to keep on bringing each other up and talking about not only like our good times, but our bad times as well.
Right.
I think that, you know, you had opened up your life on social media. You had made a post, and that's what initially I had sent to Laura, because you had posted, and I was like, wow, like, this is what we need more of. You know, you were raw and honest, and you had put yourself out there and explained what you were going through. I'm just wondering the type of feedback that you had gotten from that, and if it's what you expected.
It kind of was literally like, I was like, I haven't posted on Facebook in years, so I'm just gonna kind of give people a, like, raw summary of, like, what's going on in my life, who I am, and what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more or less like, you know, I received you know, comments and likes and text messages from people I haven't heard or talked to in a very long time.
Yeah.
So it was very uplifting to me to see that people still are reading these things, you know, and they're actually, you know, like you said, commenting on it and, you know, kind of saying, like, hey, like, good for you, man.
Yeah.
And the fact that you reached out to me was very uplifting too, because I was like, well, heck yeah, I want to talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
This is kind of why I just posted it. It was
Exactly.
literally like 2 days later. I was like, well, yeah. So, you know, it was very good to see that, you know, the outpouring of love of people that you haven't talked to in a very long time, but you know still care, and that you know that they're feeling that same happiness that I was talking about for you, that I was for them. You know what I mean? So it's like a mutual, like, give back that little happiness to the world, and I think that's what we should all be doing.
Yeah.
Is trying to, like, give back a little bit of happiness, even though everybody's going through shit. Like, don't talk about it. Like, talk about it, but don't make it all about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's a good message.
Yeah, it is. And make sure, you know, talking about it, and make sure that you understand what you're feeling and move forward from it.
Right.
You know, don't let it just, like, not accept it and just push it down and let it, like, deteriorate you as a human.
I was 128 pounds back in 2018. And I am much heavier now. But I was sickly. I was not, like, I was depressed. I was not well.
Yeah.
And that's what isolation did to me. You know, that's what bundling up all that negative energy did to me. It literally, like you said, made me feel deteriorating. Where I literally was 128 pounds, which was kind of ridiculous. But ultimately, like, I moved past that. Like I said, I accepted what I was going through, and I didn't want to mentally make it all about that. I it's part of my physical being. There's no denying that, but you have a physical being and you have a conscious being, and don't make the one issue the strength or weakness, so to speak. Follow the strength. You have so much else to give than the problems that you are having in your life. Make it more about the positive energy that you have to give. Create something, make somebody smile, post something nice, like you said.
Yeah.
Because you never know what somebody's going through.
You never know what they need to hear.
So that's why it's very important to be kind to everybody in every second of every day, to the best of your ability. Because I feel like when you say, oh, be kind to everybody, I was like, I'm trying, but I'm just
Some
to the
days
best
are
of your
easier,
ability.
yeah.
If you're thinking about it, that's trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's taking that next step. In the back of your mind, you're like, I should have said thank you to that guy, or I should have said, hey, how you doing today?
You're checking yourself.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
self-awareness, right?
It's so many people are about instant gratification, about moments, about things on Facebook. It's we don't want to interact with the real world unless it's part of that. So it's you walk past that old guy that's used to saying hello, goodbye to everybody back 40 years ago, and he's getting walked by by a bunch of kids. It's I'm gonna be that guy that's gonna be like, how are you doing today?
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's I'm doing well.
Yeah.
It
You
puts a
just made
smile
his
on
day.
their face.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel the message that we're trying to put out is all about, is take that happiness, put it out there, make something good out of it.
Do you think that, so you had said, during that 2018, 2019 part of your years of life, that you had a hard time letting people in, letting your friends help you and letting other people beside your family be there for you. Do you think that you've allowed more people in your life to know what's going on, personally, that you have close relationships with, or do you think that's something you're still working on?
Well, I'm definitely opening myself more. I'm talking to more of my old friends again, telling them what's up, not making it all about that, but letting them, know this is what's happening to me. Even in the dating scene, I used to have kind of an obnoxious Tinder profile, you know what I mean? Now I'm just kind of hey, this is me. Full disclosure on the bottom, I do suffer from a backache issue. So I'm kind of putting myself more out there.
Have you found that people are more receptive to the honesty?
Yeah. Honestly,
Good.
I get people that match with me, and they're kind of I think that's really brave, for you to do that kind of thing. Not that I'm still talking to that person that I like, but I'm hell yeah, thank you.
Sure.
That little bit of happiness.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, I'm very to the point where I'm over the isolation, but I'm still working on it. But I'm ultimately putting myself out there. Today was kind of a huge step for me, even because I'm not used to talking on a live thing or recording or anything like that. But I'm getting over that. Even in college, I was very nervous about public speaking. And
Here you are now.
And here I am now on a podcast having a full-blown conversation with two awesome young ladies here,
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We got our coffee cups that people don't know what's in them, but we have them.
If anyone wants to send us some new ones, let us know.
All about them coffee cups.
So there is a conversation that we're about to begin to have outside that I want to have now. You were talking about the ways that you cope with your pain. Obviously, the opioid epidemic is huge in the country, but especially, it's huge where we're from. We've lost way too many people to it that we both know. Yep. If you kind of want to talk about your pain management and the steps that you've taken for yourself, because I know that's a huge aspect of this.
That's a big part of the story, because getting over the pain is the hardest part. For me, the biggest thing was trying to distract myself in ways that I could kind of cope with the pain. Ultimately, I'm losing my train of thought. What was the question again?
You ultimately decide to go with like trying to figure out how to cope with the pain.
Oh, so I mean, it really was trying to like take myself out of this isolation that I was putting myself in, because that was honestly not helping the situation at all. What I had to end up doing was, like I said, get more involved in different things, distract myself in ways that I knew would be helpful. Like, I read a lot, I play a lot of video games. Not that that's a good thing, but it still distracts me in the ways that I need. You know, and like I said, I'm about writing now.
Do you not take anything?
Well, I do take Lyrica, which is a fibromyalgia nerve pain medication. It's non-opioid. But I did, however, when I had back surgery the first time, I might have back surgery again, but that's to be decided.
Yeah.
I was put on a prescription for Percocets for probably about 3-4 months. And I had probably over 900 Percocets at my availability.
That's insane.
Yeah. Like, they literally just pushed them and like, this will help. This will get you through. Like, it did.
Yeah.
But, like, they didn't tell you it's, like, how hard it was going to be getting
get
off
off of
those.
it.
So you
Yeah.
took it for the full duration, the full
I
3-4
took it for
months.
the full
Okay.
3 months. I took all the pills. I was, you know, very, what's the word I'm looking for? I was very disappointed in what I had to go through after the fact, because I kind of put trust in the medical field.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was just like, yeah, they're telling me to take this will help. Like, I did. And it got me to a point where I was like, I hate how I'm feeling after the fact. You know? And then I was like, what do I do? You know? So for me, I turned to a little bit more of a organic alternative. You know? I smoke cannabis.
Yeah.
You know? I'm not afraid to say it because...
Are you actually issued a medical marijuana card?
Not yet.
Okay.
But I'm working on that.
That's okay. No one's going to arrest you.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of like go through the process of going to the right doctor that can fill out the... So they make it very difficult in order to do that.
Of course they do. Yeah.
And, you know, it's
In certain states
you
it's
know,
easier.
and it's funny because we went from them just giving me a bunch of pills to it being more difficult to get something that could be just as beneficial.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And that's not an opioid.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or addicting.
So, like, and I
yeah.
also take CBD, like, you know, where it's just non-psychoactive, just makes me feel real relaxed, helps with the pain a little bit. And aside from that, I really don't take anything else because I'm so, you know, standoffish with the medications that are available. You know what I mean? So it's like I always tell the pain management doc, like, don't put me on an opioid.
Good.
Like, you know, I'm not about that life anymore. Just, you know, like you said, because we, you know, after the fact, we've lost friends, you know,
Yeah.
to the same thing. That ignorant me at the time was not thinking anything. It could have been me.
Well, what actually was it like physically weaning yourself off of, Percocet?
You ever try to eat one Lay's potato chip?
Yes.
It's very difficult,
Okay,
right?
sure.
So, you know, it's like, try eating one Lay's potato chip and try to isolate that feeling. You know, it's like, I really want to have another one.
Yeah.
That's kind of how that feels, where it's like, it got me to a point where I wasn't thinking about the pain. I wasn't feeling the pain, but it was more or less a smoke screen, because what it was really doing was hooking me behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was...
And if you don't like properly come down off of them, it's...
It was literally like
crazy.
feeling like hungover every day.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And I want to say at one point I felt like I was having the flu. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where I
Oh,
was
absolutely.
just like very...
It's withdrawal.
Yeah, I don't like to call it that because I don't like to say that I went through something like that.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I 1000% went through withdrawal of painkillers, and I never in my entire life abused painkillers or took them for, like, when I got my knee surgery, I was taking them, and I was on them for like 2 weeks. This was like my second knee surgery, so it was earlier when they still were just pushing drugs. So I had like Dilaudid or something and morphine and pills that I was taking after my knee surgery, and I was taking them for 2 weeks, and I went away for the weekend, and I thought to myself, you know what? I don't need, like, I'm going out and, like, partying with friends. Like, I don't want to bring them. I don't need them. Holy shit. Like, I went through, like, a 48-hour withdrawal. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. I couldn't, like, move. My, like, brain shut down. I was going through cold sweats.
And you itch?
I thought that, like, didn't, like, comprehend what I was going through. Like, I was like, I have to go to the hospital. Like, I'm literally dying. And then I was like, holy shit. Like, my body is going through withdrawal from 2 weeks of painkillers.
Not to mention I was on it for 3 months. So
Yeah.
it was,
Right.
you know.
That's why I asked physically, like, how was it? Because
Yeah.
that's an extended period of time.
Do you know what you ever take pre-workout?
Yeah.
You know that
That
itch
itchy,
you get?
oh, yeah.
That's how that feels.
Yeah.
Like when you're coming off.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. You just
I don't
feel
think
like,
I'm taking pre-workout correctly then, because
well, if you
Oh,
don't
really?
yeah, I take the pill form.
Oh, that's
Oh, no,
weird.
the powder.
That powder.
the
I don't take
powder.
the powder. It's in a
When
pill
I
form.
did
got
work
it
out
from GNC,
that
I don't know,
powder,
maybe.
you know.
Yeah.
So
That's funny.
You know, it was a very difficult part of my life that I don't normally talk about, and I did have a hard time dealing with it. But looking back, you know, I'm much stronger now than that period of time, because I was more or less ignorant to the fact that I was hooking myself on something I had no idea that I was.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, that was a lot of misunderstanding from a lot of people during that time.
I'm in college now, so I'm having to take classes while feeling like shit and trying to get over a 3-month withdrawal that I had of taking Percocet.
Yeah.
So it was a very hard part of my life. I got through it. I passed most of my classes. So I'm very proud of that. But ultimately, you know, it was hard, and there's no sugarcoating it. Like it really put me into a hard spinner spiral in the beginning of college.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard to ground myself through that, but I ultimately pushed past it, you know, found faith in myself, you know, and just kind of like took it for what it is, kind of like how I am doing with the pain now. And I was like, this is happening. It's running its course.
Yeah.
You know, it'll pass.
Yeah.
You know, and that was kind of my mentality going through that, was like, it will pass.
Yeah.
You know, all drugs run their course.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna go into, since we're almost up there in time, we're gonna go into a segment. So what we like to do. What, did you laugh?
Yeah, but just because you were like excited to go into the segment, I don't know. It was cute. Yeah. For those not listening, never mind. I don't care.
We need like a little screen to come in. Segment.
I could do that.
Oh my god, we need like elements like Andy Cohen has.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
And a soundboard.
And-
Doing.
You could be our soundboard. That was a good defense.
I mean, I have a meme soundboard on my phone.
Anyway, we are going to go into a new segment that we have on season 2. We ask our viewers to ask questions. So we'll go through a couple questions, and then you can just answer them, and then we'll go from there. Laura has them on her phone. That's what she's looking at.
Hi. Okay. Let's see. I like this one. You maybe sort of answered this already, but not explicitly. So,
Sure.
One person asks, how do you keep your mental health in check? I think that's very important to cover.
I think that the best thing is to kind of have like a routine. I think that the best thing that I ever started doing was that, you know, is just make your bed in the morning. It's the first thing you do when you wake up. It's like, I accomplished a task and go on from there. Like, I actually saw a guy do a speech about that, and I was like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So it was like a big part.
I do that too.
Yeah. So it was like a big part of like getting over, you know, the pain, and then putting my mental state in check, because it's like, well, I got to do this, but I got to do that next. I want to do that next. So it's kind of like a domino effect, so to speak, so that you kind of take the mental anguish away with a routine.
Yeah.
You know, so there's that, and there's also, like I said, just distract yourself. Distract yourself with things that you know are going to make you happy. Like, if you want to watch a whole season of Friends and it distracts you from your pain, do it. You know, if you want to beat this next video game that came out that nobody beat yet, do it. Distract yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Write something. Just, you know, keep yourself occupied. I think that is the biggest word to put out there, is just keep yourself occupied, and then think about always what that negative feeling you're having in the background is, and put it in check.
Yeah.
You know, because it's always going to be there, but you got to make it rational. You got to take it into perspective and say, do I really need to put that out there right now? You know?
Yeah.
Or do I want to do this? Do I want to make my bed? So
That's funny.
I have 2 more questions that I think are really good. What has worked for their pain? I'm in dire need of something that works for pain. I like this question because we talked about what not to do. Opioids.
obviously, opioids is not the right way to go.
So how do you manage the physical pain? Are there, like, do you, you know, will you not allow yourself to sit for a certain period of time? Stand for, can you stretch a certain way? You mentioned that.
I try not to sit for a long period of time, first of all, but I do stretch all day. Like, it's just like something that I got to do in order to kind of keep myself, you know, a little bit less stiff and more limber. Ultimately, though, you know, you just kind of got to do what you got to do.
You gotta.
You gotta smoke weed.
Yeah. Well, I feel like everyone has like their different things that they try, and it works. CBD works for some people. Smoking weed smokes for some.
Smokes for some people.
Like, you know,
Works for some people.
I smoke weed for the most part to deal with it. I do, like I said, I have one prescription, Lyrica, in order to, you know, help dilate some of the pain that I have. But
You gotta be careful with that though, because I know my mom tried Lyrica and it like affected her A1C number because she also has diabetes. So anybody out there who might have, you know, complications with their sugar levels, maybe stay away from Lyrica.
Yeah,
I don't want to like
I mean, it's not for
endorse the
everybody.
medication and cause
No,
more
it's
problems.
not for everybody, but it's
Yeah.
like, you know,
Ask your doctor.
I talked to my pain management doctor, and he recommended that I take that because it wasn't an opioid, you know, and it was something that helped a lot of people with fibromyalgia symptoms.
Right.
So he was like, you know, give it a shot. He put me on it 3 times a day, and then, you know, I also smoke 3 J's a day. So. You know, it just kind of like evens out. So
Yeah.
whatever works for you, but try things. Don't be afraid to try things. Just
Yeah.
not opioids.
Yeah.
Finally, how can someone be of support?
I think that the best way that somebody can be of support is just offering their, you know, understanding. You know, just kind of be like, I don't fully get what you're going through, but I'm here for you, and I'm here to listen if you want to tell me. Like, I think that's the big thing, is just somebody being there to listen and give some feedback. Like, I think that's the real big thing that people in pain want to hear, is a little bit of feedback, because not everybody wants to hear them self-talk.
Yeah.
You know, because it just feels like you're just spilling out everything that's going on with you, and then you're not getting any of like perspective
Sure.
or understanding.
That's a very good point.
So I think that, you know, people need to be there in understanding for that person in order to, you know, kind of guide them down a better path, you know, because it can be very isolating, you know, and the best thing you could do is just offer a hand and just say, hey, like, I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, and not many people are just going to say, like, hey, I'm here. Or, like, hey, how you doing?
Right.
You know, check in on you a little bit. Like, that's huge
Right.
for somebody that's feeling something like that every day.
Or have a full conversation.
Right.
You know, I mean, and ironically, that's what we're predicated on. It's just like the idea of having conversations like
Yes.
we're having now, but it doesn't have to be with the microphone.
Right.
You know?
You just got to be open and honest and just kind of, like, get out there, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so the final part. Why is that so funny to you?
Final part.
Um,
Doink, doink, doink.
so the last thing that we like to do is ask our guests for a last word of advice. Any last minute or last thoughts that you want people to know, or just advice that you would give to anyone listening?
I think that if I were to put something out there into perspective, I would just say you're not alone. There are a lot of people that are going through what you're going through, though that not many of them will speak out. But, you know, I was one of those people, and here I am speaking out. So I kind of want to make it into a domino effect, so to speak. So, like, take what we've said today into perspective and put it out there for somebody else. You know, give that chain of happiness a go and take it for what it is and put it back out there into the world, because you never know what another person is going through. And like I said, the best thing you can do is be there for them in a way that is a little bit more mutual than just a conversation via the internet. You know, go out for ice cream, go to Pliables, you know, like I love food, so I'm gonna keep listing restaurants here. But, you know, just kind of like, you know, don't isolate yourself. Be who you are, but get out there and spread happiness. Like, that would probably be my ultimate message, because you're not alone. And everybody needs to feel a little happiness in order to get through what they're going through. You know, and that's what got me through what I was going through. So instilled a little bit of motivation back into myself.
I love that.
Yeah,
That was great.
absolutely. Well said.
Do you have any final words, Laura?
No, I just honestly just thank you for gonna do a sound effect. No.
Final words.
No, just thank you for coming on. You know, this obviously sort of hits home for me because of my mom and my friends, and you know, I appreciate everything that you said, in the hopes that somebody else maybe treats my mom and my friends a little bit better. You know, not that they're mistreated, but you know what I mean. It's a little more understanding.
I think that once the healthcare community works out the whole business and patient side of things, like separate out the business, take care of the patients.
Yeah.
Because people like me and your mom are going through stuff and things aren't getting done about it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, well, you could get this injection, might help you, might not.
Right.
Might make it worse.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like we need a little bit more innovation, and we need the insurance companies to start paying for them too. So.
Good luck.
Yeah, right? They're like, that guy's funny.
One can hope. All right, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time of coming out here. I'm glad that I reached out because, you know, this is a topic that should be talked about more, to let people know that, you know, even though the pain isn't visible, it's still there and it still matters. So for those of you that are listening, make sure to like, subscribe, comment. I say this every time, but share this episode with someone that you think it could help, because one more person that listens to us and, you know, sees our platform could be another person that we help. So thank you for listening. Have a good day or night whenever you are tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
For the haters, come on, do it now or later. Yeah. It don't matter what your name is, share your story. We'll be waiting.